Tommy Robinson is a homegrown terrorist. He is racist. Oof. He is violent. Are you disagreeing that Tommy Robinson is far right and racist? He is far right and he is racist. That's not me being outrageous.
Again, I think
he is. That is factual.
My thing is, look, it's dangerous when the public believe GB News are the go-to channel for the truth. When even GB News have censorship levels of who censored, why they're censored. Like Rupert Lowe, he used to be on there quite regularly. What was the reason why he was totally cut off? What's the reason? Give the public the reason. Why was he a commentator and then he's not? Why was Ben Habib a commentator then he's not? I've never been allowed on this. Day one.
I want to be very clear on something. The elephant in the room is Islam. The takeover in London via Sadiq Khan is already close to complete. Now it's coming to the US. After the election last night of the hard-left communist Islamist extremist Zohran Mamdani, this plague is now spreading across the West, with the elite class engaging in suicidal empathy to pretend there's nothing to see here. Indeed, after I posted following the devastating result, New York, be afraid, be very afraid. Mamdani will take you to a very dark place, just like Sadiq Khan has done to London. The woke MSM are despicable in their celebrations tonight. The privileged pop star Boy George, who spends most of his time in London at the Mandarin Oriental Hotel, just down from Harrods in Knightsbridge, posted, "Ignore this. I am so sick of these out-of-touch celebrities in the elite class belittling what we know is happening to our country. First, via its biggest cities where there are now minority white populations." So I responded very clearly because I'm just not having this anymore. Boy, I know where and how you live in London. You have zero idea of the true hell that is facing ordinary Londoners who now live in terror of being mugged, assaulted, or harassed, often by Islamists, every time they leave home. I've been mugged twice, so no, we'll ignore you. But we will no longer ignore headlines like this one out of France today. Driver shouting Allahu Akbar plows into crowd on French holiday island. 4 critically injured. We're told that this was some type of hunt against a right-wing politician. Now, Mamdani's campaign I thought was truly horrific, very much following Khan's hard-left playbook. And of course, he wrote last night, London's failed mayor wrote, New York has faced a clear choice between hope and fear. And just like we've seen in London, hope won. Huge congratulations to Zohran Mamdani on his historic campaign. Now, let's just think about what that playbook actually means. That playbook means the victims of 9/11 were not the innocents brutally murdered by Islamist terrorists. The victims, just like here in London after 7/7, were the Muslims who may have had to deal with a nervous look or two, riding the tube or the subway. Watch.
I want to use this moment to speak to the Muslims of New York City. I want to speak to the memory of my aunt. Who stopped taking the subway after September 11th because she did not feel safe in her hijab.
Oh, crocodile tears, by the way, because we soon learned that story was complete bullshit, as the aunt in question didn't even wear a hijab.
So recently, in a recent address about Islamophobia, you referenced your aunt and some of the harassment she was facing post 9/11. Is that a blood relative? Yes, I was speaking about my aunt. I was speaking about Zehra Fouy, my father's cousin, who sadly passed away a few years ago. And for the takeaway from my more than 10-minute address about Islamophobia in this race and in this city to be the question of my aunt tells you everything about Andrew Cuomo and his inability to reckon with a crisis of his own.
There's more. Mamdani once shared an article questioning whether the brutal murder of Lee Rigby by Islamists in London was terrorism. Rigby was run over, stabbed and beheaded by extremists. Here was his acceptance speech last night.
Whether you are an immigrant, a member of the trans community, one of the many black women that Donald Trump has fired from a federal job, a single mom still waiting for the cost of groceries to go down, or anyone else with their back against the wall, your struggle is ours too. And we will build a city hall that stands steadfast alongside Jewish New Yorkers and does not waver in the fight against the scourge of anti-Semitism. Where the more than 1 million Muslims know that they belong. Not just in the 5 boroughs of this city, but in the halls of power. No more will New York be a city where you can traffic in Islamophobia and win an election.
Charlie Kirk knew the danger of Mamdani, writing before his death, "It's not Islamophobia to notice that a man who wants to globalize the intifada is about to run America's largest and once greatest city. It's not Islamophobia to notice that Muslims want to import values into the West that seek to destabilize our civilization. It's cultural suicide to stay silent." When the British Islamist Mehdi Hassan, who is now trying to destroy America, having done so here already, posted a reminder of what a racist bigot Kirk was, Megyn Kelly responded, "Islamophobia is a fake term made up to silence us. We're allowed to not want Islam taking over American cities. Don't be shamed out of that totally sensible position." Now, I found that fascinating because if you say that in the disunited kingdom, you are brutally destroyed by the deep state, just like Tommy Robinson has been. And that is why he remains the #1 enemy of the British state. And it's why, even after the judge destroyed the police and government case against him, after that ludicrous terrorism trial yesterday, leading to his acquittal, the MSM remains determined to ignore what's really going on. Tommy quite rightly now considering legal action, writing, "I need a lawyer to sue the police for their continued harassment and persecution. Someone has to be held accountable." Remember, Elon Musk funded this case. He might now be able to add GB News and the leftist commentator Pablo Ohana to the list. Because unbelievably, just hours after he was cleared of that drummed-up terror charge, the political advisor went on GB News, which remember gives a platform to these hard left extremists, but not Tommy Robinson, and directly accused him of being a homegrown terrorist.
Well, it is ironic that people like Tommy Robinson are so in favour of stop and search until it's them that are stopped and searched. Tommy Robinson is a homegrown terrorist. He is racist. He is violent. He is an extreme right-wing.
Sorry, Pablo, can I just put you in for your own sake? Would you like to withdraw those comments about Tommy Robinson being a quote homegrown terrorist? Can I politely suggest to you that you might want to do that?
Tommy Robinson hates everything about our country. He has no place in our
homegrown
public
terrorist,
life.
Pablo?
He has performed and he has delivered speeches that are incredibly divisive. They demonize our communities, they divide our country, and that is that is not who our country is. Our country
but he's not a homegrown terrorist, though, is he?
He may not be a terrorist, but
okay. So you're withdrawing already, yeah.
And he encourages the type of division that this country does not stand for.
Talking of division, I don't know about you, Alan, but I'm sorry.
It may be in this case that the judge decided that he was stopped because of his politics. That may be the case. Okay. But there is no doubt.
But Alan, I was coming back to that because that's quite an interesting statement, isn't it? Yeah. Someone on the left who comes straight out the traps and says Tommy Robinson's a homegrown terrorist, then has to backtrack on it and then talks about people like Tommy Robinson sowing division.
I think it's remarkable, and actually many on the so-called left bear huge responsibility for the problem of censorship and not allowing people to talk about things like rape gangs and borders without calling them racist. It's
Pablo Ohana then added salt to the wounds. Watch.
Are you disagreeing that Tommy Robinson is far right and racist? He is far right and he is racist. That's not me being outrageous.
Again, I think
he is. That is
be in a bit of trouble there, Pablo.
What you started off here was saying that he's a homegrown terrorist. It's utterly irresponsible. You've backtracked already. You've demonstrated the cavalier and superficial nature of your assessment, and I think you really need to take stock. We're having a very serious conversation in Britain about the concerns of the British public, where people who fly our national flag are called all sorts of names, where 1 million people went on Unite the Kingdom demonstration, and yet people are calling them at the Labour Party conference racist.
No,
you started off with a smear.
Now, I know some are saying the host did enough there, but I disagree. After all, he secretly agrees with that leftist view.
Appointment of Tommy Robinson in this loose role as advisor on grooming gangs. A, what advice do you need on grooming gangs? B, do you want that advice coming from a man like Tommy Robinson? It's not a good look for the party whatsoever. Frankly, it's not a good look for society, and I do really think this just demonstrates, actually, that there is an undercurrent, not this subtle level of racism that's been levelled at UKIP in the past. I think you could argue that this is now much more overt.
At least Tommy was given the opportunity to reveal the truth and call out the MSM deceit on 2CTV. Okay, half of you watching this are not subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken, and the best way you can support what we do is by hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes.
Now, what that means is that I was targeted by counter-terrorism on behalf of the British state in order to stop me as a journalist to get access to this. Now, and you know, the whole time this happened, Mayor, not one single journalist in the UK spoke up for me. Not one single journalist in the UK, I mean mainstream, you did, Dan Wootton did, the new media did. That's why there's a new media. If the old media want to understand why there's a new media, this is why, you absolute imbeciles. You're not standing on the side of truth, ever. You don't, even when it's in everyone's face, and it's such a wrongdoing that the whole country can see it's a wrongdoing, you still double down. You still don't side on the side of press freedom or journalist freedom. So whilst all this was going on, no one supported us from the mainstream. They were all quite happy for it to happen. Even Nigel Farage, I'm pointing it out today. Nigel was questioned about this because at the time, Reform supporters were saying they wanted him to say something. Instead of having the balls to say something and say this is wrong, they shouldn't be doing this, he just made up that I had a fake passport.
Now, on that note, independent broadcaster Liam Tufts, a Tommy ally, wrote, I hope Reform report on Britain's corrupt judiciary. Again, the establishment tried to imprison Tommy Robinson for his political stance. No crime was committed, and no one in their own right mind would believe he's a terrorist. Say something, Nigel Farage. It could be you next. But he hasn't, and so Maya then played Tommy, Nigel's comments, to trigonometry and gave him the opportunity to respond.
A leader of a political party said before the trial even finished. Let's go.
No, Tommy Robinson's been right about many things. He's just not the company that I choose to keep. You know, and even after that, we got, Robinson's been arrested using terrorism laws, isn't there? And then we discovered, no, actually, he wasn't arrested in London. He was arrested at the port of Dover, and it's something to do with a passport issue. And you know,
passport issue.
Listen, he has had some things very.
So yeah, what was that about?
Yeah.
Passport
Nigel,
issue.
I was detained under terrorism legislation, which we now know was unlawful and targeted because of my political beliefs. And rather than speak up, you sat there like the coward you are because you didn't want to challenge the establishment. It's the same old story for Nigel. Doesn't want to rock the boat, don't want to challenge the establishment, too fearful of challenging, actually, because when it happens to him or someone in Reform, when they get stopped at the border and they get demanded access to their phones, which is unlawful, as has now been proven, but it's only proven because Elon Musk stepped in and helped me with the legal case for this. And do you know what? In each of these cases, the process is the punishment. I've had this hanging over my head for 12 months. I've been arrested. All the media slurs all around the world that I'm a terrorist, that I'm linked to terrorism. All of this has gone everywhere. The damage is done. The damage against me personally is done. The damage and the stress and pressure has already been done. So even when I get a win, I don't feel like I've won anything. What have I won?
He also got Tommy, and I was very happy about this, to watch our viral live coverage here on Outspoken yesterday, where the brilliant Lauren the Insider was able to expose GB News for the shills they really are.
And lovely Dan Wootton Outspoken, of course, had on the ground Lauren Farrow, who went and approached the GB News. Guys, let me just show this video. I'm going to get your reaction on this because you've dealt with the media all your life now, and this just proves everything we've been saying and the reason that my channel exists and what you do every day with your outlet and Dan Wootton. Let's just watch this.
Hi, you're live on the #1 independent news channel, Dan Wootton Outspoken. Just wondered why you're here when you.
Oh my gosh, running
Tommy.
like cowards! Look.
I just wondered, you won't feature Tommy, so why are you covering it? Sorry, you won't feature Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe, or Tommy Robinson. No, but I just want to ask you, why are you censoring people's news? Well, there you have it. More propaganda puppets, Dan. They won't say anything.
And then she goes to the other one.
ITV or GB News?
Oh,
GB News.
Okay, and so you're reporting today. Why won't you feature Tommy Robinson on GB News?
He's not here.
Oh, no, I know, but you don't feature him, Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe?
Who are they? It's not a decision for me to make. I'm sorry.
Okay, and so are you giving full narrative coverage today?
It's interesting, man. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you giving full narrative coverage today on Tommy Robinson?
We're covering the court case.
No, but are you giving full narrative, a full breakdown of exactly what was said inside the courtroom?
We're giving the coverage of this.
Okay, well, there we have it.
I do love Lauren. There we have it, as expected. It's bad though. I mean, we laugh, but it could be like ridiculous at times, only because we don't know what else to do. It's just too depressing if we don't laugh. But it's dangerous because if they can do these things to someone like you with a huge platform and a backing of Elon Musk, what could happen and what does happen to all those little people with like the smaller platforms or no platforms, ordinary people? We saw what happened last summer. What's going to happen to this country?
I've just watched footage of that young gentleman reporting for GB News, and I was stood behind him. He didn't try an interview. He didn't ask for an interview.
He was saying you weren't there. He said you weren't there.
I've just watched him standing reporting whilst I'm behind him. I've just watched it. So I've just watched it. My thing is, look, it's dangerous when the public believe GB News are the go-to channel for the truth. When even GB News have censorship levels of who's censored, why they're censored. Like Rupert Lowe, he used to be on there quite regularly. What was the reason why he was totally cut off? What's the reason? Give the public the reason. Why was he a commentator, then he's not? Why was Ben Habib a commentator, then he's not? I've never been allowed on there. Day one. Do you know I've sat down, Mayor, with a lot of their different presenters, a lot of whom I respect, yeah? And they've all asked to have me on the show to give my side of the story. Now, is it a fair journalist channel when you allow people continually to go on and lie about me, but I'm not allowed on to count and give my side of the story? Even like now, when I've been proven as unlawfully targeted by the counter-terrorism police, it's unlawful what they've done. The last two of my cases, it's been proven unlawful. Yet I'm continually labelled as a thug or a criminal, yeah, because of the weaponisation of the judiciary. And then the mainstream channel, like GB News, who's meant to be the alternative to the mainstream, they're meant to be different. They're meant to be different. But yet they're still, if we look at what happened to anyone who talks about vaccines, anyone who talks about, there's no difference. They still are governed, and there's still certain things you can't talk about, certain people you can't talk to. So it's frustrating. I think it's a great clip. Well done, Lauren. I think she's...
yeah, she's good. By the way, the other...
Now, it was another day of shame for our political class overall. There was no mention of the brutal murder of Wayne Broadhurst, the West London binman, allegedly stabbed to death by an Afghan illegal, despite widespread mentions of the train attack at PMQs. Isn't that interesting? One of those attacks is palatable for the political caste to mention, the other is not. Indeed, only Rupert Lowe of Restore Britain understands the hypocrisy, writing, "I have been disappointed and angry with the lack of almost any attention on the brutal murder of Wayne Broadhurst, so I have submitted the following parliamentary motion. If MP colleagues wish to add their names, they know how." But as Rob Boyd added, years of coverage about Stephen Lawrence, yet Wayne Broadhurst is abandoned by the media like a used chip wrapper. The reality is, we are now sitting ducks in the United Kingdom. An Algerian criminal and sex offender called Brahim Kader Sharif is on the loose. He's on the loose after being mistakenly released, this sex offender, by the way, from HMP Wandsworth 7 days ago. 7 days ago. We have only just been told about it now, this afternoon. The police were only told about it yesterday. But David Lammy knew. And at PMQs, Calamity Lammy refused to answer 5 times if it had even happened. This is a disgrace. He should go watch.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, the House is thankfully quiet, so I'm surprised the honourable gentleman didn't hear me when I said that of course I apologise and I'm sorry for the anxiety caused. But look, let me just remind him that he was a justice minister that allowed our prisons to get to this state in the first place.
I'm going to ask him the question again. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a very specific question for him to answer.
Deputy Prime Minister.
After his release, I put in place the toughest checks we've ever had.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? It's a clear question. Can he give an answer?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Get a grip, man. I know I'm the Justice Secretary. That's why I'm at the dispatch box, also as Deputy Prime Minister. We know that.
So I'm going to ask him again. He's the Justice Secretary. Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? Can he answer the question?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I've got to tell you, I spent 14 years in opposition, and I did a hell of a lot better than he's just done.
I repeat, can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison? Can he answer the question?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to being up against the member for Newark next time. In 25 years in this House, I've not witnessed a more shameful spectacle, frankly, than what the party opposite left.
Now, the superstar panel. But first, let's be honest, finding a doctor who isn't just parroting big pharma talking points, practically impossible these days. But one bold Texas doctor of physical therapy is cutting through the nonsense, revealing 7 powerful reasons why anyone over 50 should be drinking this one overlooked thing daily. And no, it's not milk, not some chalky calcium shake either, don't worry. It's a unique protein your body stops producing as you age, yet it's been shown to dramatically boost bone density, soothe joint pain, and even smooth out wrinkles and cellulite. Users are also seeing thicker hair, stronger nails, and faster results than you'd expect, some in just 2 weeks. And get this, over 5 million jars sold, more than 8,000 5-star reviews, and a 365-day money-back guarantee. That is confidence. So for my listeners, you can get up to 45% off this formula plus free shipping right now. Just head to trynativepath.com/outspoken.
We have a food industry that knows nothing about health and a health industry that knows nothing about food, right? And once you really understand that, you can see why we're in the problems that we are. We watch TV and they're feeding us all these foods that are refined and processed and get us sick. And the next commercial is a commercial about a pill that we're supposed to take. The forefront of what we do here at Native Path is we try to get people off the path of what most people are doing is eating that stuff and taking those pills and get them on the path to eating, moving, and living in harmony with their biology. Collagen is, in my opinion, it's the one thing that if you take it, everything else starts to get easier or unnecessary because it's so foundational in the structure of your body. We're deficient in this very important protein that our ancestors got plenty of. So it's a big part of what I say is important when we're aging. You have to have this as part of your diet.
Again, that's trynativepath.com/outspoken. No fluff, just results. Go see what the hype's about. And to watch my full, fascinating interview with the doctor, click on the link in the description box below. But now, back to the show. Father Calvin Robinson and Joseph Moulton, the head of Flag Force UK, with me. I mean, Father Calvin, can you believe Calamity Lammy screaming over the dispatch box saying, "Get a grip, I have never seen such a spectacle." And look at these headlines this afternoon. HMP woeful. There are the two mugshots of the two men that have been released. Of course, one of them, the Algerian migrant sex offender, has been on the run, Father Calvin, for 7 days. Lammy knew that at the dispatch box. Surely he should go now. Surely he should go. If he is able to stay in his job after misleading the House in that type of manner, we are just a joke country.
It does seem clear that he knew, which is why he did not answer the question that was put to him several times quite clearly. Do you know of any others that have been let out? And those headlines are worrying because another criminal has been inadvertently let out. How is it inadvertently? At some point you have to ask the question, if they keep letting these criminals out, it's surely on purpose or incompetence. Either way, of course he needs to go.
Well, I think this is on purpose now.
Yeah,
I honestly
not just because
do.
of the line in the cover-up, but for it actually happening in the first place. As the Justice Secretary, he should absolutely go. People's lives are being put at risk through this.
I mean, honestly, let's just think about this for 1 second, Joseph. Like, how can a major prison accidentally release a sex offender illegal immigrant, or at least an immigrant? That much we know. I presume an illegal who was then given leave to remain, because that's usually what seems to happen in our weak country, and then be on the loose for 6 days before the police are even alerted whatsoever.
Yeah, well, we know the prison system has precedent of letting out people who've committed sex crimes to make room for other people. I mean, we saw this off the back of kind of the Southport protests, where you had people in there for thought crimes or for protesting, and they said there wasn't enough room in the prisons, and we were finding out that people were being released early to go and make room for them. Potentially there's a case here, there again. I just think when you're seeing like the case like Tommy's, and you've seen other people's cases where they are being harassed by, our justice system and our police forces, under the guise of counterterrorism. And those single cases have up to 5 or 6 people dealing with it, like one individual on a single day. We have the resources for that. It takes a full day of work, yet we don't have the resources to keep up with something as simple as this. I mean, this is spreadsheet work, right? And clearly there's either a massive error, but I think it's probably a little more purposeful than that.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, this is an extraordinary news story, Father Calvin, on an extraordinary news day. But I don't want to get lost from what I believe is the most important story in the world today, Father Calvin, and that is the West now holding up our hands and saying, just take us over, Islamist extremists. I mean, the fact that New Yorkers can look at what has happened in London and then allow the same thing to happen to them, it is the literal definition of what Gadsad describes as suicidal empathy. What is the reaction over in the States where you are, Father Calvin?
It's not great. People are embarrassed and disappointed in New Yorkers, but it's not actually New Yorkers. This is the major problem. The New Yorkers no longer live in New York. It's no longer a city with Americans living in it. It's a city full of immigrants. And so they have all these immigrants voting for the immigrant into office. It's absurd. And there are several reasons why. One of them is that all the other politicians were pandering to Israel, and Mamdani was the only one that wasn't. So despite the fact that he's a raving communist and should be despised by everyone in the country, he's the only one that they had to vote for. And it's a great shame, because this is, of course, the city that is famous for the biggest Islamic terrorist event in modern history. And now they're voting into office an Islamic follower to run the city. It's crazy to see how far we've come in the last 20 years.
Indeed. Joseph, your reaction to Mamdani?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it wasn't particularly surprising. As much as there's been a lot of talk about Mamdani as if he's some sort of prophetical, once-in-a-generation figure or orator, look at the competition he was against. Cuomo ran a terrible campaign with AI slop content. COO was a bit of a kind of a larger-than-life character. I think he was very likable, but I don't think that's necessarily what you want in an administrator of, one of the most valuable cities in the world. I mean, the thing is, what I would say is that the Mamdani thing, demographics are destiny. We've seen that with New York. The vast majority, when you look at actually the demographics who voted for Mamdani, they tend to be from an immigrant background, and that's been a very recent demographic change within New York. But I think also you have to note that there were general Democrat wins across the country, last night. I think that's indicative of perhaps Trump sort of, the government shutdown, but also spending a lot of his political capital on bombing Iran, on, sort of deporting these students who were critical of Israel. And I think that's become a very divisive issue, even for his base, who are like, we're America first. And perhaps that sort of doesn't really make them want to campaign as much for these candidates. And also there is a bit of a split between the people who are running as Republicans and what Trump is actually saying. There is still kind of that legacy sort of rhino class which still exists. And I think the Republican Party is in a little bit of an ideological schism. And you combine that just with the economy and the government shutdown. I think it's been difficult anyway. I think the Trump administration now really needs to look at what matters to people. And I think that economic issue needs to be prioritized over sort of a lot of the foreign policy stuff he's been doing so far in his term.
Now, Calvin, while this has been going on, I am just utterly furious. I'm really, really furious about something. This has literally just happened, but I've got to share it. One of my viewers, because I'd already blocked this person, had just sent me a post on X that has been posted. I hadn't seen it earlier this afternoon by the GB News presenter Michelle Dewberry. And this is in relation to what happened outside court, outside the Tommy Robinson court case yesterday, where my producer was punched in the ribs and called a fucking prick by a camera person for GB News while covering the Tommy Robinson terror case. Now, that's because you would have seen earlier that Lauren, the insider, had approached those GB News producers to ask them about why they had not fairly covered Tommy Robinson. She was obviously furious about that. Now, Michelle Dewberry has posted on X this afternoon, but as I say, I've just been alerted to it. Nobody from GB News attacked anyone. I'm astonished that this claim has just been believed at face value when many of the people claiming it, i.e. me, have a clear agenda to try to undermine GB News due to their own personal grievances with a shrug. Now, I am absolutely disgusted by that, and I wasn't planning to go there, but given what Dewberry has just said, because remember, this calls into credibility what I have reported on this show, and also what my producer has told me. So I have just responded to this saying, you're a disgusting liar. How dare you say this without speaking to me or my producer, who was 20, by the way. I wasn't going to release the footage or pass this to the police because I didn't want anyone to lose their job. But I'm furious you'd say this. Total shill. That is the camera person in question. And she's there standing in front of the GB News reporter called Will Godley, who arrived to cover the case late and actually missed the opening statements from the judge. And as I say, Father Calvin, I didn't want anyone to lose their job about this, but I'm utterly livid that Michelle Dewberry would go public and say that I would lie about an assault that took place on camera outside a court. I'm just so angry about it.
But why would you be surprised? Miserable Dubes and Co. has always been a party line follower. She'll always cover the company because she loves her job more than anything else. That's her loyalty. And so I don't know why you'd be surprised at that. I absolutely would go for their job if I were you. I'd put it all out there, put the footage out there, take them to court, speak to the police. It's disgusting that they would try to prevent you from covering it because they don't want to cover it themselves properly. And that one of your team members would be hurt.
100%. And I just really want to clarify, because this is important. It was absolutely not my intention to approach anyone from GB News. Lauren Lunn Farrow runs the Insider channel. She is a brilliant new reporter in this independent space. Father Calvin, you've obviously been on the Superstar panel with her before. And this was something that she did as part of her reporting outside the courtroom, which was completely independent. It certainly wasn't something that I expected her to do, but I thought good on her for doing it, because obviously we have to turn the cameras on the mainstream media who are not reporting honestly, Father Calvin, and we saw Tommy Robinson do that himself with a woman who was reporting for LBC too. But I just cannot believe that Michelle Dewberry, someone who was a colleague of mine for years, would seriously suggest that I would lie about that when I have friends at GB News, and one of them actually called me yesterday and told me quite a lot about this camera person, which didn't surprise me that this assault had been conducted. But remember, I was the one who wasn't trying to cause anyone to lose their job. And I'm just disgusted. I'm completely disgusted. You were disgusting for calling me a liar, Jubes. And as Father Calvin says, I will never forget the fact that you were sent out as a shill by GB News to go on Good Morning Britain. Sorry, Father, come in.
She was the company mouthpiece. When you lost your job, she was the one that shoveled out to toe the party line and make GB News look like the good guys when they were clearly not the good guys in that situation. And it's despicable that she wasn't loyal to you, one of her friends and colleagues, and actually she wanted to protect her own ambitious career instead. It's people like that that let down the media, and actually she should learn to actually play the game properly, which is to support your colleagues, to support the viewers, rather than supporting the company, which is doing the opposite of what it's supposed to be doing. Tommy Robinson, love him or hate him, is doing work for the British people. Therefore, they should get him on the channel and they should interview him about that. To have him on a blacklist and then to go to the courts and not correctly cover his case, not even bother trying to speak to him, is just sad. It's not professional. It's not proper journalism. And for Jubes and Coeur to get on social media and call you the liar it's wrong.
Totally. It's absolutely disgusting. She should have done her proper investigation. I am really genuinely angry about that, because all I do here is support the truth, and that is what's so important about being in the independent space. And I'm sorry, when we have GB News camera people attacking staff members of Outspoken outside the court, I am going to say something about that. And remember, we have footage of this incident. We have footage of this woman running away. We have footage of this woman purposefully goading our producer. So angry. And by the way, I watched Jubes' coverage of the Tommy Robinson trial. She didn't say a thing. She's too scared. She's never had Tommy Robinson on. She's too scared. Okay. Sorry, that just really wound me up, as you could probably tell. But let's get on with a very, very important and seismic story. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.